Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you guys how can you create your own table in SQL Server and how can you perform your insert, update, delete, all these different operations within your SQL Server, right? So like you seen in my previous videos, you would have seen how to install your SQL Server, how to install your local host of all from the Microsoft SQL Server repository itself. And then I've also shown you guys how to install your AdventureWorks sample data warehouse database. So if you haven't seen them, take a look into them so that you'll have continuity. And then this video, all that I'm going to focus is just to create the scripts for creating a database, inserting some records into your table, updating a record, and then deleting some record, truncating, and those kinds of things here. So let's get right in. First things first. When you, as soon as you establish a connection, I'll go from first uh, database, new data, connect to the database, connect to server. I need to say what server it is. I can just say a dot, or I can say a local host. Right? So both are same. It's going to connect to the server within my local, desktop. So once that is in there, so you have your different databases. I have two sample databases. Um, I'm gonna build my table within this database right now. So what I'm gonna do is basically open a new query, right? So as soon as I open the query, you could have seen it is pointing to this database here. I can always choose the database that I want it to point. Also, let's say if you're working with multiple databases, the good approach is to use the use command, right? Use and then use the database that you wanted to play around with, right? So that's always a good thing, right? So let's say for example if it's pointing to a different database which has the same table as well, and then by mistake you are doing some insert or update operations within a different database same table, right, which is not a right thing to do. So to avoid those costly mistakes, you can make sure to use this keyword. um, and then let's go to the main script here. So first things first, create table. Super easy. Let's say it starts with the keyword create table, right? And then you can give it a name, right? In this one I'm just gonna say my course, I would say my course, right? And then you can start a brace and close a brace, right? So this is your full table here. Inside this, what you have to say is your column name, right? My first column name is I would say course name, right? Course name. And what is the what is the label, what is the data type of the course of this column, sorry. So you'll just say varchar. So there is a lot of data types that SQL has. Varchar is like variable and character, sorry, variable character. um, it's for example in this one it has varchar, then there is integer, int, and then decimal, float, and there is a bunch of other things, guys. So you can play around with that. It's always not a big deal. You have course name, column name, and then you have your column type, and then you can say teacher name, teacher, course name, teacher name, and then teacher name again could be varchar, right? So varchar, the advantage of this is it can hold both integer and character value, so it's advantage for you guys. So right now if you see, it says the length of the varchar is 1, which you can't have a one letter course name, right? So we'll just say 100, right? Just take some space, it's fine, it's your sample database. Again for teacher name 100, um, just keep it like that. And then you can also say like a location. So location is a reserved keyword, so that's why it's indicating it as blue. I'll say my location, right? My location, and I'll again say varchar, right? So varchar 50, I guess 50 should be fine. So this is the full table, guys. So what you can do is you'll just run this, and there's already an object. I just created this object before, so I'm just gonna drop that object. So drop table and table name. So I'm gonna drop this and create this, right? um, I can always actually I can put it just before that and run them together, right? And then put a semicolon so that these two are separate scripts, right? So execute them. Perfect. So now I have a table called my course. Then let's see how it looks like. It has course name, teacher name, and my location. I also wanted to add an ID, right? Let's do like a primary key, which is not there currently. So let's go back to the other script. Alright, now let's go ahead and add that ID column to this table here. So my bad, I should have added it before, but we can always get the help from the alter table syntax. So alter table, I'll just say my course, right? And then I'm gonna add, right? I'm gonna add a column name. So there is add, drop, alter. You can do if you want to add a column, you can add it. You can, if you want to drop a column, you can drop it. Or if you wanted to alter the data type of a column or a name of the column, you can do it using programmatically. I will show you another easier way to do it as well, but let's just first learn the harder way to do it, I guess. So I'm gonna add ID, right? And it's gonna be an integer. It's gonna be a primary key. What is that? So primary key will always be unique and null. I'll show you in a quick moment here. Alright, so now that this has been added, now let's take a look in to see how this table looks like. I'm gonna delete this. I guess I'm gonna uh, create, let's create a new one. Let's close the previous window. Alright, so now if you see here, so there is course name, teacher name, my location and ID, right? So if I go here to the design, right, so you see there is 4 columns in this one. So instead of creating an alter statement, I can directly come here and do this manually if I have to do it, right? So if it is a huge table and one time update, you don't have to write the alter statement and do all these bunch of stuffs here. You can just come here and you can just change your varchar to integer, tiny integer. You see a bunch of different data types here. You can do that from here. I can also click onto that column to delete it, set as a primary key. I can insert a new column. It's just like an Excel sheet. You can just play around with that. But if you have to do this programmatically, then alter statement is a way to go, right? So that we are good right now. Okay, so at this point, we have a table here with 4 different columns: course name, teacher name, my location, ID. Let's get to populate this table, right? Let's create a new script, I guess. Let's go to insert data into this table. Insert into this table here. I can just drag and drop it. And then I'll say values, right? uh, what is the star columns it had? It had a course name, which is a varchar. It had a teacher name, which is another varchar. It had a location name, which is another varchar. And then we also added a ID integer to that, right? So course name, teacher name, location. Let's go ahead and do it. So course name, so since it's a varchar, you have to put it within a string. So course name is going to be data 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 analytics, right? And then a teacher name, let's say Senthil, right? Location, what is the location? Let's say Toronto, right? And then what is the ID? Just say 1. It's the first teacher, first record I'm putting in, so let's just say 1 and execute it, right? So one row is affected. You see the results. Now if I go and run this same query that I had it before, right, select top 100, you see now I have inserted a data into this table, right? Likewise, I can just keep on adding bunch of stuff. I can just I'm just gonna make up some data here. I'll just say Senthil something Toronto. Instead of Toronto, let's put Chicago, I guess Chicago. And then instead of 1, so it's a unique and not null, the primary key is. So you always have to make sure it's unique. So each and every record should have a unique integer. So that's what unique and not null means, and it cannot be null at all, right? That's something that you have to make sure. So I'm putting it as 2. So when I go here and then run it again, you see it's 2. So now if I try to write the same record into this, it's gonna give me an error. You see, violation of primary key constraint, right? Cannot insert duplicate key in an object, right? So this is the advantage and beauty of using primary key. So this limits the user to duplicate the same teacher. So if the someone or the data entry person from the front end is trying to introduce a duplicate, the primary key will eliminate that issue, and it's not going to allow him to duplicate it, right? So that's the advantage of having a primary key here. So likewise, you can play around and populate different data into this. So now that we have learned insert, I'm going to show you guys delete. Before that, so within insert, there is a bunch of different ways also you can do it. Let's say if you wanted to insert the data from a different table, you can say insert into table and then select, instead of the values, you can just say select uh, like this, something like this. Select select star from another table, right? I'm just making it up here, but this is another way to go. All that it needs is, after this insert into table name, a bunch of values to be pushed into this table. That's it, right? And it always, since we have a primary key column, it should, the data that you insert into this table should be respective of that unique and not null constraints, right? So please always make sure that. So now that we are good with the insert, I'm gonna just undo all the changes that I did. So now the insert is good. Now let's go ahead and see how, if you wanted to delete it, how do we delete it, right? Delete is super simple again. So you just say delete, right, from this table, which is my course, right? Delete from my course, right? So always for all these DML operations, data manipulation language operations, like I mentioned before, I should have probably used it. My bad. Let's use the use database syntax. It's always a good way to program it. So let's do that, and then delete from my course where, right? So in this one, if you see, we messed up one of the records, right? We just for the sake of it, we just inserted some rows. So let's go ahead and delete that second row, right? So wherever the ID is 2, let's remove this whole thing. Let's go ahead and say where ID, that's a column name, wherever the ID is 2, remove that whole column. So this whole column, which is ID is 2, is going to get deleted. Let's run this. Alright, so one row affected. Let's go back to the script, enter. You see if you execute it, you see that record is gone. So that's about delete. So there is also another operation here, which is truncate, which is going to take off everything from the table, but retaining the structure of this table. So let's say right now my table only should have one value, right? Because we already deleted the ID is equal to 2. Let's push that data inside again, right? We can also create bunch of other values, just like we did before. It could be Chicago ID 3. Let's push in some values and then go here to see how many values we have, right? So we have 3 different values. If I run the truncate command, right? Truncate, what it's gonna do, truncate table and then table name. That's it. Now if I run this, it's gonna take off everything from this table. You see, if I'm gonna execute this select star command, select top 1000 command, it's not gonna have anything, right? So that's what truncate does. So that's why you always have to make sure for any of these data manipulation language operations or DML operations, you should always run it using the use command, right? So that whatever operations you do, it just hits into the right database, right? So that's the thing that I wanted to convey, guys. So let me know if you have any questions in the comment, and I'll create a new video for that. So appreciate your patience and thank you very much for watching. Bye.